Hey friends, hey friends, hey friends. This is Coach Rose AJ, Carnivore Girl for Life, coming to you with another interview. Now, y'all, I have Scott here. I'm going to tell you something really, you guys might not have known this, but he's our first gentleman interview, our first male interview. And I am just so over the moon that he said yes. And we're having this conversation today. So let me tell you a little bit about Scott. He's from My Retirement Ramblings, and he can be found on YouTube. Again, My Retirement Ramblings. So, what I want y'all to do is definitely go over there, check out his content. It's about everything from his health to things that involve his retirement or some speculations or things that he's looking forward to in the future. So Scott is in his early 60s and plans to retire in 2026. And his channel is dedicated, like I said, to the thoughts that rumble around in his head as he plans for retirement. Now, y'all, I'm reading from my from my notes here, okay? And he's focused on improving his health and making sure that he doesn't run out of money in retirement, among other things that he's going to talk about. And he started his carnivore journey on December 11th, 2023, after a routine visit or his annual checkup to his doctor. Now, Scott, the floor is all yours. I'm muting myself, so handle your business.
Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate the invite and happy to talk to your subscribers. So, I guess as you indicated, I'm in my early 60s. I live in Atlanta, Georgia metropolitan area, so in the Southeast. I'm a technical project manager. So that means that my job is to herd cats and be a taskmaster, and it's also to do risk mitigation. So when I think about topics and when I talk about topics, it always has that kind of a spin to it. It's like, how am I going to mitigate risk? I'm probably the most um, overinsured person on the planet. Um, so, anyhow, as you indicated, plan to try and retire in 2026. If I can do it sooner, I'm going to make that happen. My wife's going to be retiring at the end of this month. So, like, I don't like the idea that there's a multi-year potential spread. And so if I can make it work and, we're going to try and retire together. Um, and then for my channel, my actual channel name, the email that is associated with what you indicated, but my actual channel is at Retirement Ramblings. But my email, if someone wants to send me something one-on-one, is myretirementramblings@gmail.com. So anybody who wants to reach out, feel free to do so. Um, so I guess I'll start off by saying um, I've been a yo-yo dieter my entire life. So, up until I got out of high school, I didn't have a weight problem. And then went to college and I lived on Pop-Tarts and Pepsi because they didn't do ramen noodles back then. So like peanut butter Pop-Tarts and Pepsi was my life. And then after I got out of college, I met my wife. She's a really good cook, and I put on 30 pounds just like that. So uh, that was that was the start of my yo-yo dieting. And so over the years, I've tried things from Weight Watchers to Nutrisystems to Atkins to Body for Life, South Beach Zone, Fit for Life, the 6 week body makeover. Um, and I guess I should also say in 1992, um, I was working in Florida and I had a gallbladder attack following a lunch meeting where I had stuffed shells that were awesome, by the way. But the extra fat from those shells kind of put me over the edge, I guess. And I ended up being on the floor, doubled over, and ended up having my gallbladder removed on election day when Bill Clinton was first elected president. I know it was 1992. I don't remember November of 92, sometime in that period. And so once that happened, and anyone that's had a gallbladder out will tell you that they reroute your bile duct. So it dumps basically into your intestine. And so if you think about from a scientific point of view, if you take hydrochloric acid or some kind of acid and pour it on protein and fat and watch what happens to it, pretty much when you eat something after you have a gallbladder operation, that's what's happening, in your intestines. So um, I got to have years of bathroom adventures following that surgery. And over time, it took almost 13 years to kind of normalize, but um, it used to throw my liver enzymes out of balance, so my ALT and AST. So I learned over time by researching it that milk thistle specifically would help. And so I ended up taking, and I've been taking it for over 30 years now, 325 milligrams of Solaray once a day milk thistle. And that keeps my liver enzymes in check. And I have routine blood works done multiple times a year just to make sure that that stays where it needs to be. And then, as you indicated, I did start my carnivore journey on December 11th of 2023 after my annual physical. At that time, I weighed 212.4 pounds. Um, I should also say I'm a type 2 diabetic. I was originally diagnosed in 2007. I'm also only 5'6", so my BMI would put me in the obese category, right? And my ultimate goal is to just get back into the overweight category, down from obese. But I have a A1C when I started carnivore, uh, which is the hemoglobin A1C that measures your average blood sugar over the last 90 days of 8.5. So you are a diabetic if it's over 6, and if it's over 7, you get all the nice complications associated with diabetes, like amputations and strokes and heart problems or whatever. So it's not a good idea to have it over 7. And then I had my morning blood glucose was over 200, which is not good either. So at that point, I had decided I was going to make a significant change. Part of that was I had a friend who had been diagnosed, well, that I knew for over 30 years, that had been diagnosed with cancer. And, she was like one of the most bubbly people I had ever met. And then I watched her deteriorate over a 3-year time horizon. And then she finally passed away here this past February. But as part of that, that kind of really put more focus on my health, as well as other people that are in my life that had a variety of illnesses. So um, my goal is to get my A1C down to 5.5 or lower and keep it there. So 5.5 would be kind of around the fasting blood glucose around 110. Normal non-diabetic people have a blood glucose between 80 and 100. So I want to, if I could just skate a little bit above normal, that would put me into the range where you don't have any complications associated with diabetes, but it still would be below the range that would be considered pre-diabetic, which is 5.6 to 6. So um, enter the carnivore diet, which has 0 carbohydrates. And so, the quickest way to get your blood sugar down is not to have anything that makes your blood sugar go up.
Okay, so before you get to the carnivore diet, you told us about the 90s, and all the different diets that you tried. And I got to tell you, I've probably tried everyone right along right with you because we're about the same age, same time frame and whatnot. Were you doing anything before you ventured into considering carnivore? Were you doing the standard American diet and then you went straight to considering carnivore, or?
So no, so I was doing the standard American diet for many years. I did take a brief detour for a little over a year and did paleo, and I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. But uh, when the pandemic, like I had done really well, lost like 40 pounds on paleo and got my blood sugar under control, and everything was great actually. And I have an entire closet of clothes that I can't wear that were all from my paleo time. Um, but then the pandemic hit, and where I work is a campus environment. So I used to put on 10,000 steps every day, no problem, because I had to chase people down all over the campus. And then I started working remotely like everybody else, and pretty much sat on my butt for 14 hours a day. And other than going out when you had to go get foods or toilet paper or something, like I didn't do anything for the year plus that we were kind of set aside. And so, you know, in my wife still is a eats a standard American diet. So I have half of a pantry right now that's all the stuff you would expect for the standard American diet, and half, well, really about this much of a shelf that's mine, that's carnivore. But at the time, the whole pantry was full, like her side, and those Doritos and all the other stuff was calling my name. And so when you're sitting around and you really can't do anything, uh, you'd have to have really great willpower, way more than I have, to be able to not go down that path. Um, any follow-up question on that before I kind of, okay, cool. Um, so at my last weigh-in, which was this past Sunday, I weighed 190 pounds. So that's down 22.4 since I started carnivore, which is awesome. But more important to me was my A1C. I went and had labs done and got them back it's been about 30 days now, but I got them back and they were 5.8 for my A1C. So again, down from 8.5. So I was thrilled with that. And my fasting morning blood glucose has consistently been between 100 and 110. So I'm expecting that when I get my next A1C, that it will be kind of around 5.6, and then maybe in the May timeframe, I'll get down to the goal that I want of the 5.5, and then we'll see, how I can go about um, maintaining that, right? So to get, yep,
So let me ask you, did you have a fasting insulin done at all, or have you ever had a fasting insulin done?
I did, and because Dr. Ken Barry, basically said get a C-peptide, get a fasting insulin. So all the tests that he had recommended at my 90-day, I actually went and had done. And so my fasting insulin's in the normal range, my C-peptide's in the normal range. So I know that my pancreas is producing the right amount of insulin and everything's good there. Because I was concerned about that. I was like, once you burn through your beta cells, it's a problem. So to answer your prior question about like paleo, whatever, in 2017, I watched the documentary, I think it was on Netflix at the time, of the Paleo Way with Chef Pete Evans. And during that documentary, he introduced Dr. Terry Wells, who um, was able to correct or reverse secondary multiple sclerosis, and she had been bound in a wheelchair for 4 years, and she was able to get back to walking again. She's done 5K. She bicycle rides every day to work. She's the head of clinical medicine at, I think I want to say it's either Ohio or Indiana University. Um, and she created the Walls Protocol for autoimmune conditions. And then also, he introduced a Dr. Natasha McBride, who invented the GAPS protocol, which is I think it's gut and psychology syndrome. I think that's right, to help repair the microbiome. And then later I found Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, who is the kind of the guru of the autoimmune protocol, the AIP. And she's written multiple books on that topic. But the common theme out of doing all the different readings and stuff that I did following that was that each one of these doctors basically came back and said the key to all healing our autoimmune issues is basically your gut health. And so, like for someone like me, I don't have definitive proof. I probably have leaky gut, and repairing that gut biome will more than likely help me achieve other um, corrective uh, conditions and get rid of some of the problems that I have. So, um, kind of as I indicated, I used to do lots of steps and stuff on my campus. Um, when when I finally had at the end of 2023 is when I finally got that focus back, and so I thought, well, I might as well do the ultimate elimination diet, because even when you're doing AIP or GAPS or whatever, it's an elimination diet, but it's limited elimination. So you're still allowed to eat a whole bunch of stuff. And then I had been watching like Michaela Peterson and, you know, what's her name? steak and butter gal. I can't think of her name at the moment. It'll come to me. Bella,
Bella,
Bella the steak.
Bella.
Yeah, thank you, Bella the steak and butter gal. And so, among a whole bunch of other people, but when I watched them, it pretty much, convinced me that, you know, maybe I should try the lion diet. And then, for about a week, I just ate, you know, beef and salt and water. And like, for me, that wasn't going to cut it. I'm sorry. Like, I can appreciate people like Michaela who doesn't have a choice and other people who choose to do that. That's awesome. Uh, I just know that for me personally, I just can't make that happen. Um, and so I I need variety in my diet, and the variety can be in proteins, but like most people will just do variety of beef. And so like whether you're doing ribeyes or New York strip or briskets or, chuck steak or chuck eye, whatever. Um, for me, I do a variety of pretty much pork, and I'll do like, well, one of the people I also follow was Laura Spath. And so Laura, is, well, she's in Spain right now with her family for 3 months, but for her job, and she is a professional trainer in the oil and energy space. And anyhow, she's got two young kids and a husband, and the whole family is carnivore, although the kids are probably more keto. Um, but you know, she one of the things I like about her is she doesn't strive for perfection. She just strives for progress. And so she'll use Adobe seasoning. She'll use all kinds of things that other people would consider um, dirty, dirty carnivore, right? But she lost over 100 pounds. Her husband lost over 100 pounds. It worked for them. So I'm good with that, right? Like I want to make sure that I'm getting where I need to get, but I also don't want my life to be so restrictive that I can't possibly, make it another day just thinking about, oh my God, I got to eat another steak. Like that just wouldn't work for me. So I do steak or beef. I do a little bit of lamb. I'm not a lamb fan. I do a fair amount of pork, um, and I'll say quite a bit of no sugar bacon, because again, being diabetic, I try to make sure that I don't have any added sugars in anything that I do. Um, and so then I do seafood. So at least where I live, I get a chance to get like snow crab at a pretty reasonable price. So, unlike people in California or potentially on the West Coast where it's super expensive, I can get it for like $7.99 a pound. So for me, I can buy like 6 or 8 pounds at a time and put it in the freezer and, kind of have a surf and turf or something similar
Lucky
when I need to.
you. Lucky you.
Yeah. So, um, so any event, and then on top of that, I don't eat that much chicken. Pretty much the only chicken that I eat will either be chicken wings that I do in an air fryer, and usually I finish them on the grill with some Frank's hot sauce, or I will do chicken thighs with skin on in the oven on like 400 with just salt on them, and it makes the skin really crispy, and I'll eat that. Um, the way that I kind of measure myself isn't really through the weight loss, but rather through my lab work. And so I've gotten in the habit to do quarterly labs just over the years. And so I've been tracking there's like 4 or 5 things I care about the most. And so my A1C is my the number one thing I care about. So the peak A1C that I hit was 11.8 back in August of 2022. So that was my worst. And then my lowest was while I was on paleo in August of 2019. I hit 5.6. So I know that my body can at least get back to that range, which is why 5.5 is my current goal. And like I said, I'm expecting to be able to hit that goal probably in the May timeframe. My peak fasting glucose was 254 back in June of 18. And my lowest was 93. And again, that was on paleo in 2019. And on carnivore, at my 90-day mark, it was 107. So, it's trending in the right direction, but I don't have I'm now on day 121. So the last 31 days, I'm not sure how much it's tweaked. So I'll have to wait to my next labs. Then I do triglycerides, which is the fat in your blood, free floating fat. My peak was 227, which is not good. And my lowest was 80. And right before I went on carnivore, it was 159. I haven't had my triglycerides redone uh, at the 90-day mark. For whatever reason, the doctor didn't put in my lipid panel. So I need to go get that done. Uh, and then my ALT and AST, which again are the liver enzymes that I track, my peak on the ALT was 99 back in 2018. My lowest was 17 in May of 2019. And on carnivore at my 90-day mark, it was 31. So well within the normal range. And then AST, um, I don't remember what my peak was, to be honest. I know it was in June of 18, but I don't remember what it was. My lowest was 21 again on paleo. And then on carnivore, it was 28 in March of this year. And then also kind of a follow-up to your question previously, before I started carnivore, I spent, I'm going to say hundreds, could be thousands of hours watching YouTube videos from Dr. Jason Fung, who does fasting. He's a nephrologist, so love his stuff. Sean Baker, who's in your area, Dr. Ken Barry, Dr. Eric Berg, Dr. Nick at Total Health. He's in my area. uh, and then one of my favorites is Dr. Sten Ekberg. He's a holistic decathlete, Olympic decathlete. Then there was Bella, the steak and butter girl, Laura Spath, Bobby Parrish, Tom DeLauer, who's a nutrition and kind of bodybuilder guy. Then Michaela Peterson, her father Jordan, and a lady who started a YouTube channel. I think it was back in 18. Um, Mary from Mary's Nest. She does all traditional cooking. It's a fantastic site. So if you want to know how to make anything from fermented something to sourdough bread to whatever, she has a cookbook she put out this year, but also she just has a wonderful selection of videos that will teach you how to do pretty much any kind of traditional cooking. So when your grandmother or great grandmother was making stuff, that's what she's doing. So I love watching her stuff. And then when I started carnivore, uh, actually right before I started carnivore, everybody and their brother, you know, comes around and says, "Get Element," right? And so that's what I did. And
Happy to see that you have the raw, though.
oh
I
yes,
commend you for that.
no
Yes.
stevia for me.
Yes.
Um, so everybody loves Element, but I'm not a fan. And so I don't like drinking salt water. So I did take it for the first 2 weeks, and I know for a fact that it helped with my carnivore flu symptoms. So I didn't get the cramps at night. I didn't get a lot of the transitional things, headaches and whatever. And, whenever I did get a headache, I actually would go for my Redmonds, and I would literally just put my finger in the Redmonds and then lick the salt. Like for me, this works awesome. Um, and then uh, because I didn't want to take the element, but I still wanted the electrolytes. And an element has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. So, and they use magnesium malate, which is okay, but I went and got magnesium glycinate, which is from bulk supplements. And the reason I got this, not only can I get all my stuff for a lot cheaper than buying Element, but it's made with bovine capsules, so they're non-vegetarian, animal-based capsules, gelatin capsules. So you can truly stay strictly carnivore if that's important to you. And then likewise, they also sell potassium, and I got potassium citrate. So each potassium tablet's 99 milligrams. So I take 2 a day to give me the 200 milligrams that's in Element. The magnesium glycinate is each capsule is 133 milligrams. So I actually get more than twice what's in Element. And then I just, like I said, you consume the Redmond's real salt, pretty much on anything I eat. And if I feel like I need more, I'll just eat it straight. And for whatever reason, I enjoy the salt direct, but not in water. So I don't know why that is.
But it sounds like you've done more than enough research and you know what works for you and what your preferences are as far as your supplements and all that good stuff and electrolytes. So you have a box there. Are you just holding on to it? Or are you going to finish it off? Or
Um, At some point on my site, I will give it away to people who wanted like the most comments or something. I will do something because
Okay.
in addition to the whole box, I also have all of the other flavors that sorry that they
Oh,
give
the
you
sample
for
pack.
the sample
Okay.
packs, which I
Okay.
again has stevia, so I won't use it. So,
Sure.
but I know lots of other people that put it in their coffee and they make chocolate covered coffee or something. I don't drink coffee, so it doesn't help me.
Oh, lucky you. I'm a coffee queen. Now, can I ask you something real quick? So you mentioned that you did really well and you mentioned your blood work from your paleo when you were having that experience. Okay, so was there a particular reason you chose not to go back to paleo, or did you just want something totally different is the reason that you wanted to do carnivore?
No, so my I expect to end up going back towards paleo. I wanted to do carnivore because my numbers were so out of whack that I thought from everything that I looked at and read and heard, carnivore, given it was zero carbohydrates, would get me back from a diabetic perspective to the best place quickest. And then I could also, again, thinking about the microbiome, I could start adding things back because since I totally eliminated everything, and now for me it's 121 days of not eating anything but meat or protein. I can start to add back small amounts of things that I would like to have that are paleo friendly or that are, could be ketovore if you want to look at it that way. And if it doesn't give me a problem, then I can add that back in my diet. But overall, even when I was on paleo, back then I would keep my total carbs under 20 grams of carbs a day. Um, I have started in the last month to add back a little bit of um, specific, and I'll tell you which ones, specific vegetables, keep with the goal of making sure that everything stays under 10 carbs a day. And I don't mean net carbs, I mean carbs, right? So I'm not like saying take care of fiber, remove it, and then you get to count, you know, the net carbs. Like I care about real carbs. Um, because again, from a blood sugar perspective, that's what matters. And I know lots of people say, well, because your fiber doesn't get absorbed, it doesn't spike your blood sugar. Well, I don't have a continuous glucose monitor, but I do take my blood sugar 2 hours after I eat. And I can tell you that's just BS for me. Like it might work for somebody else, but not for me.
That was what I was going to ask you, what I scribbled down here. Because you are a type 2 diabetic, have you ever worn a CGM or are you currently wearing one or do you plan on wearing one in the future? And
So,
if you are, and the another part of that, sorry, is how often do you prick your finger if that's the method that you
yeah. So currently I do finger pricks. So and I have the blisters to prove it. Calluses, I guess. So I do it first thing in the morning when I wake up. I do it um, right before I eat lunch, or if I eat lunch, or whatever my second meal of the day is. Because unlike other people, I almost always do breakfast. Um, and then unless I'm doing an intentional fast, in which case then I do fasts that are usually between 36 and 90 hours when um, when I want to do them. But um, but I almost always do breakfast, uh, and then I try to finish my last meal of the day by like 4:35, so that even though I might be having breakfast, let's say at 8:30, I'm going 12, 14 hours or more without eating. But what I know historically is, and it goes with your circadian rhythms, is your blood sugar should be the highest in the morning, which is why I take it first thing. And at 3:30 in the afternoon, it should be the lowest, or right around when you would normally expect it to start getting to be towards dusk, or, when you think about the later afternoon, that's when it usually drops. And so I always take it at that time, and then I'll take it before I go to bed just to have an idea of, you know, how much it went up from the time I went to sleep, and I already knew I wasn't eating anything till what did it go up to in the morning.
So has this been a practice of yours forever and a day, or did you start your finger pricks with this way of life that you're venturing on with carnivore?
No, I've been doing this for years.
Okay, so then I am so curious. Why haven't you tried a CGM?
So the answer to that is primarily uh, the variability of their readings. So finger pricks are more accurate than the CGM, right? So there's about if I remember correctly, about an 8% variance that you would get using a CGM. I have looked at the Dexter CGM because that one is supposed to be the most accurate. I've looked at, the Spanish sounding one, something Libre. I can't remember what it's called, but something Libre, uh, Dextrose, and there's a number of other ones, but um, it comes down to combination of cost because they don't last more than like 14 days, I think is the longest one. And so you have to keep changing them out. I don't like the idea of having the thing always on the back of my arm. Plus, you have to put, even though they're small, they're the size of a quarter or maybe $half. Um, Most people have to put like a bigger Band-Aid that covers over that to make sure that it doesn't pop back out of their skin when they're doing whatever they're doing. And uh, And while I'm not sure, I'm pretty confident I have a latex allergy. So the coverings that would go over it is more of what I'm concerned with than the unit itself. Um, but I do understand it's about around $80. I want to say $80 a month, somewhere in that range um, for the actual monitoring thing. Whereas, you know, I can get 100 of the stick things, which will last, most of the month for $17 at Walmart, and like the actual finger prick things, I have a box of 100, and they've lasted for years. So you don't have to change them out. Except, I mean, they tell you to change them every time you use them, but if you change them once a week and it's only you using them, they specifically hit your skin for a split second and it goes back inside the thing that's triggering it. I don't see that as an issue.
You're having things back into your normal eating protocol. You're counting the total carbs, not the net carbs. Where do you see yourself in, like, let's say 3 to 6 months from now, or when you have actually arrived at where you want to be with your numbers and your health?
So my expectation is at least through the end of the summer, I'll be doing straight carnivore with some tests of like a couple of things. Um, I'll try to, once I've kind of, because I don't want to do a test more than once a week with some of the different things that I'm doing. So, for example, I've tested, can I have baby bell mushrooms? I know I can have two of them grilled and it doesn't spike my blood sugar and it doesn't give me any gastro problems or whatever. I know I can have a half of a cup of broccoli with butter and it works. I know I can have similarly a half a cup of asparagus, but I have to steam it for 15 minutes first, then saute it in butter for 5 minutes. And if I don't do both of those, I get major stomach problems. So, not sure I'm going to be doing asparagus. But I also know that I can do very small amounts of onions grilled and charred red bell peppers. And so they were the most important things for me. I wanted carciferous. I wanted to see if I could have carciferous vegetables. And I wanted onions and peppers because when you add them to and mushrooms, if you can add those to steaks, it adds enough of a flavor profile difference that for me, um, I could eat it for a longer period of time. So um, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to say, oh, I want to eat salads or I want to eat, you know, um, I guess I'm not trying to get back to eating vegetables that grow under the ground, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
those kinds of things.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like you're being very methodical about it and you're doing your testing and whatnot. Is there anything that you think that you will never do based upon your history and the results that you had in the past?
Well, I'm never, even though I miss it extensively, I'm never going back to eating bread or pasta or rice, um, things like that. And quite honestly, that's one of my biggest challenges is like I love Chinese food. And so like I have yet to be able to come up with a recipe that has a sauce, even if I wanted like beef and broccoli or something. Like I just can't so far figure out how to make something that would be carnivore or paleo or whatever friendly. Um, I could get by using um, cauliflower rice instead of regular rice. Like I could do that, but I just can't figure out how to do the sauces in a way that would work. And throwing the meat and broccoli on a thing of cauliflower doesn't sound appealing to me as an example.
Well, I was going to say cauliflower rice was never my jam, even though I tried to make it my jam. I was like, this stuff stinks. It tastes gross. My granddaughters don't like it. My husband's like, what's happening here? It just didn't work out. So I feel you on that.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you, have you had any experience with sugar addiction, processed food addiction, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a sugarholic. Uh, so like during those first 2 weeks of the carnivore flu, when I was going through withdrawal, really the withdrawal for me was probably a month. I had really severe headaches. I was super tired. Um, and I used to, my wife, I used to live on diet sodas like Diet Coke. I haven't had a Diet Coke in over 120 days, and like that's a freaking miracle for me. So, because in my entire life, like I really wasn't a water drinker. I would drink like iced teas, and I would drink soda, and some other fruit juices or something. But um, you know, I pretty much have been living on water. I occasionally will have a green tea, and even less occasionally a black tea. But um, otherwise, it's strictly water. And for me, I, I've we have soda streams, so I can make sparkling water if I want. I don't really care for it. Like I don't know. After I bought it, I wasn't as happy, but conceptually it was good. Uh, so I had
Save
that.
bottles, save the bottles, have it anytime you want. I get you.
Yeah. So, um, so, but I drink distilled water mostly, and I know a lot of people complain, like you shouldn't do that because it supposedly draws minerals out of your bones and other things. But I feel like I'm getting enough minerals added back with my other electrolytes and stuff that I'm going to drink the distilled water. It has no taste, and for me, that's better.
So let me ask you, you mentioned your wife a couple of times and she's getting ready to retire before you and all this good stuff. How is your family support with this way of life? Do you have people that are on your team, or do you guys talk about the reason that you're eating this way? Do you guys compromise when you have meals together or dine out? How does that
So,
work?
so as I indicated earlier, my wife's a really good cook, and I put on lots of weight. So she cooked for the first 25 years of our marriage, and I've cooked for the last 15 years of our marriage or thereabouts. Um, and so I control, like, I make all of her meals. I'll make her whatever she wants, right? So I'll make her whatever she wants, but I'll make what I want for my dinner. Sometimes she'll say, okay, that I'm happy to split that with you or whatever. But otherwise, I'll make her whatever it is that she wants. Uh, the biggest challenge that I found for carnivore is with social situations. Like we used to go out all the time with friends to dinner and whatever. And again, it's hard to find a restaurant that can make adjustments that is truly carnivore. Like especially if you care, is there seed oils, is like other things that they use that you can't really tell. So as an example, recently I was, I went to a funeral. When I was away, there was a um, there was a restaurant that was a derivative of one that's in my neighborhood. So I went to that restaurant and I literally stood there for 15 minutes with the server and went through the menu and said, kept telling him everything I couldn't have. And I said, really, all I can have is, let's say, beef, cheese, sour cream, and maybe a little bit of onion. You have anything you can make me that's that. And he went back to the chef and he kept coming out and saying, well, we got this, but it has this other stuff in it. I'm like, dude, I can have these four things. What can you give me? And so finally they said, I can give you steak asada or something. It wasn't like carne asada, but it was whatever. And literally, it was a plate of meat. It was like fajita meat with a bunch of cheese melted on top, some onions mixed in, and a side of sour cream. And I was like, perfect. It's like $18 for the dinner. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. So then came home, and my wife works, uh, I- I'll say she's a teacher, but she does after school programs or like tutoring and stuff. Anyway, where she works, right in front of that place is the same restaurant, but different owners. So I went back to that restaurant, and for lunch they run a special on steak fajitas, and I said, okay, can I get the same thing? And so now when I go in, they bring me a thing of meat, a side of shredded cheese, a side of sour cream, but I just get a plate of meat and onions. And they would stand there and watch me, and I dump the stuff together and make a sauce out of it. And I finish every drop, and I'm happy. My wife gets to order whatever she wants, and everybody leaves there happy. I haven't
Yeah.
been able to find other venues yet, though. Like I know I can go to Buffalo Wild Wings and they do, they do their chicken in tallow. So I mean, I know that there's other places I can go, but the kind of places I want to go, I've yet to figure out how to do it.
It's going to take trial and error, right? Trial and error, and being able to communicate to people in restaurants that are servers or the chef that you mean what you're asking for. You mean you want the bun and the fries? No, I mean, I just want this.
That's right.
So, me and my friends, about 2 weeks ago, we took a train ride down to Portland. There was probably like eight of us. And I had to explain to them that I don't eat just anywhere. I'm very particular and I have one meal a day. So they were overly concerned because this is a new group of friends. And I go, don't worry about me. I got me. Seriously, I got me. So I accompanied them to a oyster and seafood bar. And halfway through their meal, I visited with them and had water. And then I left to go get some burgers. So I got six patties with cheese. I nearly hugged the lady that was taking my order because she got it. It was a burger place. All I wanted is the burgers and cheese. And then when we got back on the train, then I ate my dinner. They were like, what? I go, yeah. Oh, and I got some pork rinds from Whole Foods.
So at the seafood place, they wouldn't have something that would be either grilled or in some way that you could have the seafood there that wasn't mixed
So
up.
they had options, but my preference really is just the basics like burgers, right?
Okay.
So I asked the server, I said, is your burgers a quarter of a pound? Is it a third of a pound, a half a pound? She goes, no, there's three patties and they equal up to a third of a pound. So one of the girls at the table actually ordered that. And I was like, oh no, this would not work for me. I'd be angry.
Mm,
Okay. So
gotcha.
there's things that were there, but it just wasn't to my preference.
Okay,
Mhm.
but and as a follow-on, I'll just say this is my son's getting married in May, and uh, to the point of how challenging is it in social situations, his fiance's mother is vegetarian. His fiance is pescatarian. I'm carnivore, right? My wife is regular,
Yeah,
standard American
yeah,
diet. So like
yeah.
they want to have a chef come in and prepare a meal for the when the family meets. And my only request is like I'm fine. Like I'll even do an extended fast if I have to not
Yeah.
break it when we go there. I said, but if you're going to pay the money for a chef, I just want you guys to know, I don't care how pretty it looks. I care about it has to be at least this amount of ounces or I'm going to
Yes.
be starving and I'm not going to eat something that's 5 ounces that looks pretty, right? When I want something
Mhm.
that's 20 ounces.
Right. And I mean, you and I are in the same boat. It can look good, it can be as expensive or as cheap as heck. But if it's not satisfying, I'd rather do without, especially because it's my one meal that I want to put my elbows into and eat. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm totally with you. So hopefully that's four different eating preferences you got going on there.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I know in the past when I would go visit my son before I was doing, because he lives in California, before I was doing carnivore, um, because his fiance doesn't eat pretty much any kind of meat other than fish. Uh, and again, since I indicated I love Chinese, we would go out and get like dim sum or something, where the two of us could just go together. She would go off with my wife somewhere, and they'd go to a tea house or whatever they were going to go to.
Oh,
Um,
well, you guys will figure it out and it will be just fine. It'll be fine. I
yeah,
have faith. It'll
I
be
hope
fine.
so. Yep.
So let
Um,
me let me ask you before we get ready to close out. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you didn't mention that's coming to mind that you may want to mention in your interview?
yeah. So I want to talk real quickly about what I think are the benefits of carnivore. So for me, my eyesight got better. So 2 weeks into carnivore, I woke up and couldn't see out of my glasses, thinking that my eyesight had gotten worse. But I set up an appointment with an ophthalmologist, and I went, and my right eye got a half a diopter better, and my astigmatism improved by 7 points. And in my left eye, it got a quarter diopter better, and my astigmatism improved by 8 points. And so, net net, after just 2 weeks of zero carbs carnivore, and again, I was having all the carnivore flu things or whatever, it didn't matter. Like for me, that was a huge win, was like, I can't believe that I can now see like way better than I could see before. So that was also awesome. As a type 2 diabetic, one of the things that happens is at least for men, I don't know if this is true for women, like during the nighttime, you get up to urinate about every hour and a half. Like I mean, you get really broken sleep because you're just constantly up because you're having to get rid of the excess sugar. And so on carnivore, that doesn't happen. I get up one time in the middle of the night. I probably go like 4 hours, wake up, and then I'm good till I get up. I've also had improved resting heart rate. It's dropped like around 8 beats a minute. So now it's around 56-ish for the resting heart rate. Got tons of energy. And I know other people talk about this, like, you know, the energy is awesome, but the potential problem with that is I get less sleep because I have more energy. So that's if you really want a certain number of hours of sleep, it doesn't really feel like a plus. Because now you're up and you have lots more time to go spend doing whatever you want to do, and you have the energy to do it. So that part's great. That part's great. So it could be a catch 22 depending on the person. Um, and then from which is a surprise for a lot of people, but I've lowered my overall monthly food bill by 23%. Um, so I've saved $262 a month on my food bill. So I dropped it from 1153 to 891 a month on average. And that's because of well, really three things. One, we don't get to eat out near as much as we used to. So I'm saving on that. But really, most of the savings are on junk food and sodas. So, like, I don't know if you've gone to buy a 6 pack or 12 pack of I mean, your viewers of like Coke, but it's like $9 a 12 pack now. And so, like, you can easily blow through a lot of money buying, you know, Diet Coke as an example. The other thing is as my numbers come down and I drop off of prescriptions, the drug prices associated with what I had to do previously have gone down exponentially. And I'll just use an example. Like one of the drugs I take, or I used to take a higher dose of, was Farxiga. And Farxiga, which you see a commercial for dialysis or whatever where they promote Farxiga, but it's really for type 2 diabetics. It used to be about $460 a month. and you could get a savings plan card or whatever, but still it was several $100s a month for that one prescription. And then depending,
Out of pocket, you were paying that? That was your copay?
yeah, that's a copay.
Oh my word. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, some of the drugs, depending on what your condition is, can be really, really expensive. So in any event, right now, I want to say my drug prices for all of my lower version of the drugs probably end up now being like $40 to $60 a month total. And I'm looking to get that to zero because, as I indicated, I want to retire. And, you know, even if you're on Medicare, there's a donut hole. So you need to figure out what your drug costs are going to be and what have you. And, for me, improving my health does a couple of things. One, that increased energy level, like one of our key things that we want to do when we retire is travel. And so I want the energy level to be able to go do what I want to go do in the places that I want. And then also, um, I obviously would like to extend my longevity, um, without being ill because, they talk about the go-go years, let's say in your 60s, and then it becomes your slow-go years in your 70s. And then when you hit 80, it becomes your no-go years. Well, I'd like my go-go years to go further and my slow-go years also to go further, so that's one of the reasons that's motivating me to, make the health changes that I'm doing. Um, I will say though, also on the cons of carnivore, the biggest challenge that I've had, and I know other people that you've interviewed have not had this issue, but I had on carnivore really bad rosacea flares. Um, so I get lesions all over my face that broken out. The only way I could get rid of them, and I tried everything I could think of, but the only way I could get rid of them was to go on a doxycycline regimen for 7 to 10 days, and the tetracycline back kills the bacteria, and so that would go away. And then I got a prescription cream of ivermectin, which is also brand name Cilantro, um, and that's an anti-parasitic that you have to put on your face. And so basically it's the same thing. And I know you're a dog person. It's the same thing you have to give your dog for heartworm. So I'm putting their heartworm medicine basically on my face to keep the rosacea away. And so right now it's actually lightened up uh, from what it was. I mean, I had like 2 weeks ago, I was broken out really horribly. And then also I got what other people call the carnivore or keto rash. So on my torso, especially on my sides and around my back, I just broke out with this really bad looking like web rash. Anyway, I had a skin biopsy of that done 2 weeks ago by a dermatologist, and then it came back that they thought it was a low probability of eczema, but the high probability of hives. And then they were like, well, what's different? And I was like, the only thing that's different is I'm on carnivore. And so then they're like, well, maybe you have a histamine intolerance. And again, I know that Lynn, who you interviewed, had talked about, and she's got, I think, a video on, which I'll go watch, on how she handles her histamine intolerance. Um, but they basically told me I should take a Zyrtec, the once a day Zyrtec every single day for 30 days. And that would lower if it was in fact a histamine intolerance, it would lower my histamine buildup levels and then the rash would go away. So kind of that's probably the biggest negative. And then um, again, depending on your point of view, um, the other negatives could be that your regularity could be less than you're normally used to because your body actually absorbs all of the nutrients that it needs and there's not that much waste to go around. So that could be an issue. And then for me personally, I have a long history of, triggers at certain times of the day. Like I sit down to read a book and it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm in front of the fireplace or something, and all of a sudden I want a bag of chips or I want something, which I don't have a way of well, I don't have a way of solving other than I do actually use Max whatever pork skins, the plain ones that have nothing in them, as you know some form of chip replacement. I also have made my own um, I'll say carnivore crisps. So I basically take um, New York strip that I get at Costco that's sliced really, really thin, way different than, let's say, what you would do with ribeye or something, and put it in my oven, dehydrated at 170 degrees for 3 hours, and it's super crispy. And so you can use that as a pseudo chip and throw salt on it or whatever. Um, so for
And
me,
I watched that video. I watched that video today. So you've inspired me within the next 30 days. It's on my to-do list to at least try it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
if you do
Yeah.
it with a ribeye and you do it about a quarter-inch thick, it's awesome. If you want it crisp, you get it like much thinner, but then you really have to like it crispy. So
Okay.
if you like any chewiness at all, it needs to be thicker than more
Oh,
like
it
a
needs,
quarter-inch.
got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So and then I talked about the less sleep being a positive or negative. And then the only other thing that I find is, at least in people's comments to me, like when I'm talking about stuff, there's a whole bunch of, again, this goes back to the perfection at the cost of um, progress. But you get into these debates about it has to be grass fed versus grain fed, or it has to be, salt only versus you could use, I don't know, some small amount of spices or what. But like, again, I think everybody's journey is different. Everyone's body handles things in a different way. And, each person has to make the choice for themselves of what level of dirtiness or whatever they're willing to accept in doing this program to meet their goals, and whether meeting their goals a little bit slower is worth the trade-off for them.
Was very well said. Thank you. Because I am the carnivore that uses all the seasonings, all the seasonings. Okay. Because I'm like, look, I got to be able to have salt and other flavorings up in here. So I agree with you. If it's going to take a person a little while longer to acclimate or find out where their balance is, it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. But I have to ask you one question. I think I watched one of your videos when you initially started and you were talking about a CPAP machine.
Hmm.
How is that? Are you using your CPAP or are you done or
Yeah,
what's
no,
up?
I'm using it. So, like, the follow-up question would necessarily be, do I need to use it? And I will tell you that for me, it took me almost a year to get used to sleeping with a CPAP, and I use nasal pillows, so it's not like the big giant contraption thing. Um, but now I actually prefer, because I have a 13 centimeter of pressure that it blows through. So like, even if my sinuses are like in Atlanta, it's like the pollen capital of the world right now. And like, if my sinuses get clogged, I just put on the CPAP, open my mouth for about 5 seconds. It's like getting a Navage or something. My sinuses are cleared out and I'm golden. So it doesn't bother me. My wife likes to whisper quiet sound, because I used to snore like a freight train. So I'm in no particular rush to um, stop wearing it or to, see what ends up happening. Because I know that really in the past, when I wouldn't wear it, in addition to um, obviously having the apneas, I would also wake up with a really bad sore throat. So I don't really want to take that chance. Unlike other people, my apneas were actually really bad. So I used to stop breathing 72 times in a minute. So like my I was actually getting brain damage from the amount of apneas, because I used to be a math whiz kid, and then in, I lost the whole part of that functionality at one point in time.
Mm. But it sounds like you've got it. You're going to keep using it. It's helping you and all the good things
Yeah,
with
I
the
mean,
CPAP.
I'm good with it.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you so much for being my first male guest on this show. But do you have anything else? If there's nothing else, I do want to ask you, could you lend some advice or some words of wisdom to somebody who might be on the ledge of trying to stay the same, but they want to make a change? They know that they need to make a change.
So, um, other than saying just, do it, you have nothing to lose and only something to gain. And so I, you know, Worst case, you do it, you don't like it, you start eating the way you were before. Like there is no downside to going on carnivore. Uh, Understanding that during the transition period, there are periods of time that are unpleasant. And, you as long as you make sure you get your electrolytes and, you might even ease yourself into it. Like, I went through caffeine withdrawal, I went through sugar withdrawal. Like there was a number of withdrawal symptoms that made my first several weeks not pleasant. And I was willing to accept that for what the benefits were that I thought were willing to come. If you're not willing to accept any amount of pain, then, stay the course and you'll deal with pain in a different way going forward. But it's worth the short-term pain for the ultimate gains that you're going to get down the road.
Right on to the right on to the right on. Thank you again, Scott, for being here. And y'all really do need to go over there and check out his YouTube channel because I've been through maybe half of the stuff that he has up there, and it doesn't take 6 years to watch one video. It's very nice, concise, and well done. So I appreciate you, Scott. And what do I want to say? This is Carnivore Girl for Life, just signing out, y'all, signing out.